right. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for
Well, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I was messaging or emailing Bev back and forth, and we email all the time because she helps me get people, and I interview some people she wants me to interview, and so you were one of them, and she was like, this is the one of the best new upcoming female artists, and I was like, okay, cool, give her
Oh,
to me, and yeah, so Dani-elle Kleha, is that right? Did I pronounce that right?
it's like two words, so it's like Danny L.
Dani-elle. Okay,
Yeah,
it's not okay.
that's
I
it.
see that. I see the dash in it, but I just figured
Yeah,
you know how some people do. I didn't realize
I
the
I get
name. Yeah.
it.
So you're here to, which we'll talk about later, promote the Positive Youth Tour, and then
Yeah.
you um, got a lot. I've got a little bit of notes written down here, not a lot. But what was I found interesting was that you opened up for like Darius Rucker and then like Luke Bryan and Jason Aldean, just to name a few. So obviously, when you open up for them, do you get to? Some people get to meet them and some people do, but out of those three, which one was the one that was just so overwhelming and giving information and giving I guess help on how to do stuff? I guess that's the right word. Just it's early in the morning, so you gotta forgive me.
No, it's okay. Um, well, to be honest with you, if I'm going to be 100% honest with you, I think every single artist within country music
Uh-huh.
that I have ever met or gotten to work with in some way, some extent, or even if it was just meeting, you know what I mean, in like a passerby kind of thing, every
Uh-huh.
single country music artist has always been like super open to, you know what I mean, asking questions
Yeah.
and, learning from them and things like that. But if I had to think back to any of those shows that I did, I would have to say that probably the Jason Aldean show was like the best to learn from.
Okay.
Just like performance wise and his
Uh,
stage presence wise and his interaction with the crowd. And I think they were all incredible. I got to talk to Darius Rucker's lead guitar player a bunch when we played that show. And he is so
uh,
awesome and so cool and so down to earth. And I got to just chat with him a bunch about, traveling and playing and different just tips and tricks and, what he had to say about, being in the industry and everything. And so that was really cool too. But there was something about the Jason Aldean show that like just the presence in general of it was incredible. You know what I mean? So to learn from that and to be there to see that was just awesome.
well, he's one of those rock star country acts. He has fire and he has
Yes.
dirt bikes running off the ramps, and so that I think that would be I think that would be just cool to just be in the audience and be in the presence
Yeah.
of that show. But the point that you're trying to make is you were there, so you saw it from the outside looking in instead of in the crowd looking that way.
Right. Exactly. And I'm somebody that's all about the whole feel of a show. Like even when we do the positive
Mm-hmm.
use or when we do any show in general, like I
Mm-hmm.
like I think that the audience should come in and for that whatever hour, 2 hours, however long something is, come in, forget about everything else that's going on in their life and just be totally immersed in the music, have fun, laugh, sing, dance, and just it be a total experience. You know what I mean? More than just
Mm-hmm.
coming in, sitting down and listening to some music, but just being it a whole experience for them. So his is definitely an experience.
Mm-hmm. See, for me, I would forget about Luke and Jason, but for me, growing up and realizing who Hootie and the Blowfish were, and not
Yeah.
realize that Darius Rucker was Hootie and the Blowfish, man, I would just talk. That's why there's some of these people I can't meet growing up because I know I would talk their heads off. Like he is just
Yeah.
like so so when you release Crack River, you got to tell me what song. Talk about not even the trees. It's one
Yeah.
of those things where you just gotta like you got to stop yourself and I think I wonder, is that a hard thing to do when you're opening up to some of these people you look up to, and you have to kind of stop yourself and be like, I can't fangirl out, I can't nerd out, because if I do, they're gonna look at me as unprofessional. Which they do it too,
Yeah.
but it's just a standpoint.
Yeah. No, and I agree with you. You know what I mean? There are those certain ones that you're like, oh my gosh. Like you said, you grew up listening to somebody or watching somebody, and then you're just there. Even if it's not an opportunity of where I'm opening, you know what I mean, or playing a show or just any kind of festival or anything, alongside somebody, it's still like
Mm,
if you're in the presence of someone, whether it's at an award show or whatever it might be, just if you're in the presence of them, there's that certain one that you're like, oh, this is like total
mm,
legend.
mm. Who would be some of those for you? Like if you get the chance to open up for one of your musical icons, heroes, who would that be for you?
I absolutely currently I love Ashley McBryde. I think that she's like an awesome powerhouse, and she just totally like just stands for what she believes in. She's real, she's honest, and that shows in her music and in just her everyday life. I love Carrie Underwood too. I'm a big Carrie Underwood fan. Um, growing up, like Martina McBride was the first concert I ever went to when I was 9.
Mm,
And, she has just always been like this strong powerhouse, I think, in female
mm.
country music. So she has always been somebody that I look up to as well. Um, and then there's just some awesome males in country music too that I would love to be able to meet or work alongside or play a show with, like Brett Eldridge. um Big Brett Eldridge fan, and Lee Bryce, and there's so many incredible country music artists out there right now that it's so hard to label, you know what I mean, just one, but there's so many that I truly do look up to.
You mentioned Brett Eldridge. Have you listened to his Sunday Drive album? Talk about
Yes.
probably. I do these things kind of near the end of the year, early January-ish, uh, like my top so many albums of the year. And this
Mhm.
year has kind of been, I'll be honest with you, a real stinker for albums because a lot of people can't get into the studio and do albums. But
Yeah,
for Brett, and
unfortunately.
then like Brett's album Sunday Drive is just so different, but it's also the type of music that I enjoy, the sad, the kind of popish side of it.
Mhm.
Then you got
Totally.
Hardy. Hardy, I never really understood Hardy until this new album came out, and I didn't realize he had sang that Lauren Elena, the One Beer, whatever it's called.
Yes, 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 yes.
And I'd heard it, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna listen to the album. That album, that's the one album I pick. That or Brett is what I'm picking to listen to every day, and I'm like, those two have to be easy at your top list. So for you, what would be some of your top albums of the year so far? Even though we haven't had many,
Oh
there's
my
still a few. It
gosh.
doesn't have to be country. It can
Yeah.
be, for me, I throw Eminem's "Music to Be Murdered By." Giant Eminem
Yeah.
fan, and I think that was better than his last one. But so, what would be some for you?
I have to say I've been listening to a lot of Kelsey Ballerini's new stuff. Um,
Okay,
she had Kelsey that she released actually in the middle of all of this. Because it was back in like April or something, which I give her
right.
major props for continuing to do that. And she released it with grace and still was able to involve her fans and do a lot of different cool stuff. So that was really cool. I do love the Sunday Drive album. I have to agree with you there. Like I said, anything Brett Eldridge, he just has a really cool, I don't know, just a cool presence, cool sound, cool everything to him. And you
Mm,
said something that I agree with totally is like, he's a mix of everything. He's got a little bit of pop in
mm,
there. And then you have those songs that are sad, but they're not sad. And they just have that vibe to it. And um, Old Dominion too. Their
right.
latest
Yeah.
album, huge Old
I
Dominion
forgot
fan.
about that. I forgot that
Yes.
came out this year. After all the
Yeah.
stuff that's happened, I'm gonna have to go back because I
Yeah.
usually go back and listen to them. I'm gonna like what I do is I go and I write a list of my favorite ones so far,
Yeah.
and then I'll go and I'll be like, well, I have to listen to them because obviously I'm not gonna put 30 in there. I have to put at least 10, and then there's one album that was released this year that I don't understand, and it's no offense to the artist, but like the new Tim McGraw album. I don't
You know what?
understand where that. I don't understand where they said that's his best album he's ever released, because there's only 3 or 4 that I enjoy, and I like the Damn Country Music album way better than this one. And that's no offense to Tim. It's just I wonder if it's the mindset behind him creating that album in 2019, not knowing what we're going to endure in 2020, and then him releasing it, when the pandemic was. I mean, it's still giant, but back when it was, that was 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was hell on earth. And it's like,
yeah.
Is it the mindset that you're in listening to it that you're not supposed to be listening to it in? Or is it just all around a bad album?
Yeah, I have not actually listened to that album its an entirety. I've heard, I Called Mama, like the single that was off of the album. And I heard a couple others here and there. I haven't, I'm going to have to make it a point to listen to it now, definitely, like in the full entirety. But that's another tough thing too, like you said, with everything that's happened in this past year. I mean, I know I haven't had the opportunity to play a full show with my band since March 6th. I think that was our last show. And, it's so tough because we all had so many different plans, whether it be recording or, touring or just shows in general. It's so tough. So that could be a thing too, like you said, being that it was recorded and written and everything in 2019. And it's a tough thing, it's a weird times we're going through right now.
You mentioned shows. Besides the fact that you're, an artist and you go to and you do shows here and there, and there's a lot of crowds. Besides, look at it from a different angle. Look at it as don't look at it as an artist, because I'm going to ask you this, and obviously I know the artist answer is, yeah, we have to get out there and play shows. But do you think it is a smart thing with this going around, even if they take the best precautions, to have even a crowd of 75 people?
I mean,
because they're opening back up the movie theaters, and they're having the sports arenas have 10-15% of the max capacity, and it's just like, is that the right thing to do nowadays? And I see some of my artist friends come on and play shows, and I'm like, is that the best thing to do right now?
I'll be completely honest with you. So, I've just been playing all of this super safe. My mom is somebody who's immune compromised, and so we've just personally been keeping it really, really low key, really safe and everything. My main priority through all of this has been music. I always say music is not only what I do, it's who I am. You know what I mean? Like it's a part of me, and it has killed me to not be out on stage and to not be singing and dancing with fans, and that's just it's second nature to me. It's what I do, and I have just had the mindset of not only do I want my own family safe, but I want my band safe. I want my band's family safe. I want all of our fans safe. So being that I'm currently in Pennsylvania, that's where I'm born and raised. And, we were hit pretty hard here. So we had majority of our shows were just flat out canceled. We didn't have a say. We didn't have anything to do with that. But, they were just flat out canceled. We did have one show opportunity where they had not canceled it. And it was going to be back in August still, which I'm not saying that, things are we're seeing an improvement, obviously, you know what I mean, more than months ago. But it wasn't something, I wasn't comfortable with doing it yet. I wasn't comfortable with bringing out, the band and possibly bringing people out, and, who knows? I think it depends on your area. It depends on, what you're going through, what the venue is. Is it outside? Is it inside? Is it, but, I just think that safety first and foremost is super important, so we've been doing, I've been doing stuff. I've been doing lives. We created a new fan group through all of this on Facebook. That's just kind of an exclusive place for all the fans to interact. I get to go on there live, hop on, do fun stuff, whether it be just like little acoustic things and things like that. But it's so hard, it's so hard to know what's right and what's wrong. And, again, I can't wait for the day that I could step back out on stage and do a show,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Like I said, as for us, truthfully, the calls were kind of made for us with everything for this year because, you know, the venues kind of stepped in and said, you know, we're canceling out, we're not doing this. And as far as the Positive Youth Tour goes, those are all in schools, you know, so right now, obviously, we can't be in Pennsylvania. A lot of our schools are virtual right now, or like doing hybrid learning where only 1 day a week they're in school or things like that. So, you know, that's just kind of on pause now until again it's safe to go out and to do things. And you know, so it's such a tough thing, you know. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to, I find myself, you know, I'm out in the driveway exercising, like I have music playing through the speakers and a song will come on that we do, and you know, I'm there like pretending I have an audience and that my band is there.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm a little girl again, you know, pretending that I'm on
Mm-hmm.
stage. But you know, I think keeping up the fan interaction has been really important for me through all of this. You know, I loved social media before, but especially, you know, through all of this, we have no other way to see them. You know, we can't do meet and greets, we can't do shows, can't do any of that. So just like popping on Instagram live and hopping on to like their lives and not telling them, and that's been super fun. Um, and again, keeping up on like Instagram stories, and we released the fan group back in June, and they've been loving that. We have like a couple thousand fans in there right now, and it just keeps growing and growing. And it's just really cool to do something to still keep that interaction with them, still share music with them, ideas. I'm going to be releasing a new merch line in the next coming weeks, which I'm really excited about, and just still keeping that interaction because, you know, my fans are so important to me. If it wasn't for them, you know, we wouldn't get to do what we love. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been a transition period, you know what I mean? And like I said, I look forward to when the day comes when we can do shows again.
You mentioned that, you know, when you're outside exercising, you imagine a crowd, and I wonder, whenever you're just like, for me, when I'm going around and I'm, you know, cleaning the house or doing whatever, doing chores, I'll have either a podcast going or music going, and I wonder when you do it, and you're obviously you're listening to music, doing the same thing, you're singing, but are you performing when you're cleaning? Because I will be in real quick, and I'll let you answer. Like I
Yeah.
will be in the car going to the grocery store, wherever, and I just be like, "Well, I'm going to the grocery store today," just out loud. I'm like, "Who am I talking to?" Like it's just, I talk all day basically doing this, and I'm just like, "Well,
Yeah.
who cares? There's not a camera behind me. There's not a news crew. Who am I talking to?" And it's just so. Do you kind of do the same thing? Like when you like I asked, is it singing or are you performing for nobody?
It's funny because, you know, it's kind of half and half for me. If you want to know the truth, you know, I am sometimes, you know, something will come on and I'll just be singing, you know, just kind of singing to myself or whatever. And then there's the moments where, like that, if I have like the full on opportunity, I will legitimately just go into full perform mode and nobody's around. Like you just said, nobody's around, nobody cares at the moment in time, but
Mm.
you know, that's just kind of it. So it's kind of half and half. Like I said, it depends on the situation. If it's something like that, I can tell you 110% I will be out there and pretending that I'm just putting a show on.
Sometimes I like to act like I'm, you know, back at 6 years old, and I'll be hanging clothes up, grab my microphone, and just be singing along to like Luke Combs or something like that. And I'm just like, I need to get
Yes.
back
Oh, I love Luke
to what
Combs.
I'm doing. I know, he, don't really know if I want to give this away, but my business partner had a weird text message, and turned out that it was a guy that was connected to Luke Combs, and apparently Luke Combs was listening to my podcast and his podcast, and so that's kind of it's not weird in a sense because I have people that are friends of mine because of this podcast, and they kind of were in the same class when he came in. So I
Yeah.
wonder who's in your class, like when you went to Nashville, who is the people now that a lot of people may know? Is there anyone?
Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of, I feel like that's one of those questions when I end this call. You know what I mean? I'll be like,
You're gonna think about it and you're gonna know it.
why didn't I name this person and this person and this person and this
Mm-hmm.
person? That's a tough question because I also feel like there's a lot of artists that are, like killing it in the songwriter field too. So, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like
that counts.
yeah, exactly. If I stop and I think
Mm-hmm.
about all of it, you know what I mean? There's so many. I feel like there's so many of them. You know what I mean? That I would really have to
Mm-hmm.
stop and think about all of it. Um, but Luke is another artist too that I should have named before because his album totally awesome.
Both of them, and I was
Yeah,
surprised because This One's For You was such a gigantic album that when he released
yeah,
What You See Is What You Get, I was like, because there are some artists that'll release one album and the next album is just it's okay.
yeah,
It's like a lot of people say you have all the time in the world to write your first album, but you have
yeah.
no time at all to write your second
Now,
one. So no disrespect to Luke, but that's kind of what I was thinking, and I was kind of like,
right.
this is gonna be just, but it was just as good as the first one. And
Yeah,
now he's coming out with a deluxe edition, and I'm like, oh man, here we
I
go. And
heard that.
it's it's nuts to see because I remember, I'm pretty sure you too, when Luke first came on the scene with
Hmm.
Hurricane, and
Yes.
any new artist comes, I'm like, this just because it happens so often, I'm gonna hear this song and not hear from this guy ever again. I do that
Right.
all the time. Like it doesn't matter who it is. Sam Hunt, I did the same thing. Oh, he's got this
Yep.
song, one hit, he's done. This guy happens a lot, and not in just country, but every musical genre.
Oh, absolutely.
And I remember hearing the guy, and I was like, he's pretty decent, when Hurricane came out, and then
Mhm.
it was just gigantic. Like I remember people telling me right when that came out, it was right before that came out. I started this, so I was like 2016. Yeah, 2016 is when I started this, and like that came out maybe end of 16, early 17. And I remember people telling me you got to watch out for this guy Luke Combs. I was like, okay, he just signed a record deal. Okay, it was one of those. Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
just
And they're probably
yeah,
friends with him,
right.
and that guy he blew up quickly, and he's gigantic. I mean,
And
he's
he has
probably. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say he's always stayed so humble and so real. And
Mm,
that's so important to me. When I look at any other artist, when you meet an
mhm.
artist, or just even if you never get the opportunity to meet an artist and you just see them, you could sense that. And I just think that's so
Right,
he just
right.
seems so approachable and so
Mhm.
just he's devoted to his fans and to the music, and that's so awesome to me too, on top of it.
I see Luke as two things. I see him one as right up there with Ed Sheeran, as he can write some really heart-stringing songs, and it's just like
Yeah.
he's a great songwriter, great performer. But I think he's on the track to being the next possibly Garth Brooks. Just
Yeah.
how gigantic he is, It's I haven't seen a live show from Luke Combs because he hasn't come close to where I'm at, but from the music, and he's just such a powerful singer. I can imagine what the shows are like, and it's like,
Oh yeah.
it's going to be like, obviously he probably won't be jumping off of ladders and stuff like that because we're big boys, and so it's like he's going to be the 2020 Garth Brooks, in my opinion,
I
the next
agree.
generation of Garth Brooks. And I don't think there
I
has been.
agree
You
million
can
percent.
you can name you can name Luke Combs, Jason. There's nobody to Luke Combs' standards right now. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, I do. I have to agree, 100%. And I think that his song 6 Feet Apart that he just
Mm.
released too is, I mean, it's incredible. I don't, it's,
Well, that was nuts because a lot of people just started coming up with these quarantine songs, and some of them were kind
mm,
of goofy. And then Luke Combs was like, "I'm gonna get one's coming out Friday, 6 feet apart. It's gonna be
yeah.
goofy." It was really, really good, and I was like, "Oh man, he can make a sad song into
Yeah.
something." It was
I do
fantastic.
have to, I have to admit, when I first heard that, he was going to release, a new song and it was called 6 Feet Apart, I was like, I don't like
Mm,
what is this going to be? Is it like you just said? Because there's so
mm,
many things that are coming out, and they're not cheesy, but corny or just things like that, play on words and stuff. And I thought, what is this going to be? And I was in the car the first time that I heard it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what everybody feels right now. This is, I don't care who you are, where you're from, what age you are. This is how everybody feels, and he hit the nail on the head with that one for sure.
And I mentioned Garth Brooks because you've written with Amanda Williams, which I believe is the wife of Kim Williams. Is that right? Do I have that right?
She's actually Kim passed away, but Kim's daughter.
Right. Okay, yeah. The daughter. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I knew they had some relation. I just felt okay.
Yeah.
But that's cool because Kim, he was a giant Garth Brooks song. Like most of the songs Garth Brooks recorded was written by, Kim Williams.
And Sun Comes Up, and yep.
It's cool because you got to write with Amanda, and she wrote like Tired of Boys and stuff like that from Garth Brooks. Yeah. And it's like, what was she like? Because I can only imagine what Kim was like in the songwriting studio process. What was Amanda like?
Amanda was an incredible person to learn from, and she's just an incredible person to know. She's actually one of the first. So the first time I ever went to Nashville, I was 12. My parents and I took a trip out, and I started voice lessons out there. And that's actually how I met Amanda, was through my vocal coach, because she had taken lessons from her and was just good personal friends with her. And she said, I want you to meet Amanda. And Amanda was doing songwriting conferences at the time. The Hillbilly Culture Club, it was called. And Hillbilly Culture Club, I think. And she would have host these different songwriting conferences in town and have she would teach classes. She would bring in, a bunch of her songwriting friends or producers or things like that. And, teach in different ways just about songwriting, about copyrights, about, the whole background process of it all too. And so that's really how I got to know Amanda. And one of the first times that I sat down with her was actually at Fido in Nashville, one of my favorite coffee shops ever. And she came in with a laptop, sat down. She had about, I would say 25, 30 songs for me to listen to, gave me a pair of headphones and said, here, listen, see if there's anything that you like. And there ended up being 2 songs that I had recorded. It's More About the Ride was one of them. That was my absolute favorite. And there was a bunch of them that I had taken just the demos to see if I, wanted to record them and everything. That was one of them that I did. And, from there, it kind of, blossomed into, like I said, I started going to the conferences and started, getting to know her more and more. And that's when we did, we wrote 2 of my songs from my last album, 11. And I mean, she's just incredible. It's like, she's a master at what she does. There's no other way to, when you sit down in a writing session, one of my favorite things to do is just kind of okay, what's going on? Let's talk, because that's where songs come from. It's real life. It's what you're going through. And that's just kind of what it was, I Might Be Wrong was one of the songs that her and I wrote together. And I remember we wrote that on a phone call, writing session, or it might've been a Skype. I'm not quite sure, but I literally just went on about, what I was going through at the moment in time, and, telling her about the story and everything. And those words came out. I said, I don't know, I might be wrong. Who knows? Maybe I'm at fault. And she's like, stop. That's, so you think you might be wrong. And I said, yeah, I might be, I don't know. And if you go back and listen to that song, it's all about that, somebody hurt you, somebody did this to you, somebody, you've been drugged through the mud, but at the end you're still standing there going, I don't know, I could be the one that's, that's in the bad guy's side here. So she just has a way of, and if you listen to anything that she's written, she's truly remarkable.
Last couple questions here as we wind down here. What is one song that you think is just brilliantly written. Like there's not a fault in it anywhere.
Girl Going Nowhere by Ashley McBryde.
Okay. Why? Like, is it the lyrics? Is it the music, or is it everything?
I think it's everything, to be honest with you. I relate to that song so much, first of all, on a personal level. But second of all, I just think if you listen to her, especially if you listen to her do it live, the emotion that she puts into it, but even if you listen to a radio version, the emotion she puts into it, if you listen to the lyrics, everything just flows, everything just goes, and you find yourself. Before you know it, it's like, oh wow, the song is over. Like it just kind of, that's one for me, hands down.
Favorite album of all time. You're gonna listen to it. Doesn't matter that person commits murder and goes to jail, but that album is still, because for me that'd be Continuum John Mayer without a doubt. What would it be for you?
If I'm being honest, I'm going to say I'm a really big like classic 80s rock.
Me too.
Like huge. My parents were huge 80s rock fans. So if country music wasn't on in the house, then like there was some kind of 80s rock on in the car or in the house. And honestly, I would have to say any Bon Jovi album. I'm a big Bon Jovi fan.
But what's the best Bon Jovi album? Is it Slippery When Wet?
Probably.
Or probably.
I would say Slippery When Wet. That's what came to mind when you said best. So
I'm trying to think here, because is Slippery When Wet such a great album because it has almost all of his hits on it, or is it just all around every song is great? Because I agree with the album being great, but I don't agree with it being the best 80s album or one of the best 80s albums. It just has all the songs on it, and that's what I'm kind of struggling with is it because like it's kind of like Appetite for Destruction for Guns N' Roses.
Right.
It's not the best album, but it has a lot of their hits on it,
Yeah, it's a tough, because it's like, is it just because, like you said, it's a good like jam out album? Who knows? You know what I mean? But like I said, I would have to, for instance, like my playlist of, again, if I'm gonna go out and work out, go on the treadmill, things like that, I do have a ton of like 80s rock in there. So from Bon Jovi to Aerosmith, Def
That's
Leppard,
my band right there.
Aerosmith.
Aerosmith, favorite band of all time. That's like if we're talking about classic rock, my favorite, Aerosmith's my favorite band of all time, and it's like Kiss comes in a close second, but it's like the number one album from Aerosmith to me would have to be one of their 90, the ones that happened in the 90s was Permanent Vacation, because I enjoy it so much because I realized that this is the first album they made sober, and all the band is back together for this album, and it's like they can still make hits sober, and they don't have to be, drug addicts or alcoholics. And it's like that album is why it's perfection to me, because it's got like Angel and Dude Looks Like a Lady, and you have all those songs that's like, and those are the bigger ones that they've had, and they did it sober, and it's like you can do it, it's one of those positive.
No, I know what you mean. Absolutely. But so, that's, like I said, I guess I would have to go with, probably, if I thought about it, more and more, I could think of others, but because I love Meatloaf, Journey, so that's, but yeah.
Have you read any of those guys' books? Like, I don't think Bon Jovi has one, but like, have you read any like the Aerosmith ones or any of the?
I read
the guy from Journey wrote one, I think. Steven Tyler's. Okay.
Yeah.
What did you think? Because I think some of those rock and roll memoirs like that, some of them are just so out of their mind that, like, for instance, Johnny Cash. I was reading Johnny Cash's book, the one from the 70s or something like that. And a lot of it is kind of inaccurate. And I wonder, and the reason I know that is because the biographies and like June Carter's book, it tells a different story, but their story is the same, other than Johnny Cash's, and I'm like, is it because that's what he thought happened in his mind because he was just so
Right.
out of it, or is that generally the real story? And that's it's like
No, I know
Aerosmith,
what you
like
mean.
Steven Tyler. It's like Steven Tyler's was kind of hard to believe a little bit because he was so out of it. Is it true? Is it not true?
No, I agree with you. I agree. Like you said,
Mm-hmm.
that really the way that everything, went down? Is it really? I thought Steven Tyler's like backstory was interesting. Um, the one that I read, I'd have to. It's in on the bookshelf. I know it's like a yellow and black cover, and it has him on the cover, obviously. I
Mm.
forget like the actual name
Holding
of it
holding
though.
a microphone, and it's called "Does the Noise in My Head Bother You?" A rock and roll
That's it.
memoir.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you. I
I
got
know
the
that.
colors. I said yellow and black.
Right, right.
um, but I thought his like early on backstory was interesting, and
Mm.
that specifically, like I really enjoyed that part of it. But I have to agree with you. I think any of them, it's like, is it really how it went down? Is it, you know what I mean? You don't know.
I'll give you a classic band, Paul Stanley. I think you should read
Okay.
that book because
Okay.
him nor Gene, they were not addicted to. They were addicted to sex, and it's like everything
Gotcha.
that's happened in their book, they're knowing because they weren't high or anything like that. But his backstory, I think, is more interesting than Steven Tyler's because he was born without an ear on one side of his head. On one
Yeah.
side, yeah, one side of his head, and it's like he's deaf in that side, and it's like he can play guitar like nobody's business, and it's like it's one of those, it's one of those things.
Right.
But for me, the book drops off around the middle for some reason. I just wasn't
Okay.
interested, and then towards the end, it got really back interesting. I don't know if it was just me or what it was,
I'll have
but
to
I would
grab a
suggest
copy.
reading that. I would suggest reading that because it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
I'll definitely grab a copy.
Well, Danielle, I appreciate you being on here. We're running short on time. Bev booked me a back to back to back today, so it's like, oh no, here we go. But go ahead and talk about the Positive Youth Tour, and then I'll have you give everything else out, your socials and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Positive Youth Tour is something that is super near and dear to my heart. We actually created it. We go into elementary schools, high schools, middle schools, all of that, and I get to talk about just kind of following your dreams and talk about bullying. I dealt with bullying growing up, so it's something
Mm.
that's very, again, near and dear to my heart. So I kind of just share my own stories, my own messages, and just ways that I have gotten past it, even with things that I deal with today, and just kind of how to be a kind person, good person, follow your dreams no matter what. And so I talk for, about 20 minutes or so, and then we bring my full band out and we put on a mini concert for them. And it's truly one of the most incredible things that I've gotten to do thus far in my career because,
So
we have
so where are you bringing the bands? In like is it in the gym or in the auditorium, in the cafeteria?
95% of the time it's in the auditorium.
Okay.
Sometimes some schools don't have the full like stage auditorium setting, so they have like a cafetorium situation, things like that.
Hmm.
But usually it's in the auditorium, so we do like full production concert. Um, and we have anywhere from, we've had 500 students, we've had 900 and some students in the audience. So, it ranges. But my goal is to make it a nationwide tour. And right now we
Mm.
have Ronald McDonald House of Scranton on board with us. We have Texas Roadhouse of Wilkes-Barre, and they've just been so awesome in wanting to get the message out there. And like I said, it's truly one of the most amazing things that I've gotten to do. Are you there? You froze up on me.